TikTok, though endlessly entertaining, is not always a force for good in our world, and the influencers we so readily follow are not always squeaky clean. We've talked about social media crimes before, but today we're bringing you 5 TikTokers who committed some seriously concerning crimes. Although most criminals try not to advertise their crimes, the masterminds behind the now-defunct TikTok account @StickyBandits2 were keen to share their exploits. Taking both their username and the other name on the account, Harry and Marv, from the bumbling villains of the popular 1990 Christmas movie Home Alone, these delinquents seem to be a gang of accomplished car thieves. The first posts on the account date back to November of 2021, and are filmed at various locations in and around the city of Glasgow, Scotland. Not only do these nefarious thieves film themselves stealing cars and motorbikes, but they also frequently taunt law enforcement. They've recorded themselves driving behind police vans and speeding past a police station in a stolen vehicle. It also seems they like to linger at the scenes of their crimes, posting covertly recorded clips of law enforcement recovering abandoned stolen vehicles. In one particularly daring video, they filmed police actively searching for them on the street as they hid away on the upper floor of a nearby building. They also are derisive of their victims online, taking posts about stolen bikes and compiling them into a TikTok video with the caption, "It was us that done it." Aware that filming and posting their escapades could get them caught, the criminals frequently attempted to conceal their identities with ski masks, hoodies, or even disposable gloves. Their account now appears to be deleted, but before they erased their online presence, the gang had amassed over 2,550 followers and 11,400 likes on TikTok. Though there hasn't been much movement on the case that the public is aware of, in January 2022, the Glasgow Times reported that authorities were closing in on the individuals behind the social media account. As a Police Scotland representative told the Times, "We are aware of these videos posted online, and inquiries are ongoing into these crimes, with officers following a positive line of inquiry. Let's just hope there's a Kevin McAllister on the force, ready to trap Glasgow's own Harry and Marv." In the early hours of the morning of January 17, 2021, 18-year-old Helen Rose Hastings was passing the final days of her winter break hanging out with friends. Helen, a freshman at Oberlin College in Ohio, was among their high school friends in their hometown of Houston, Texas. The group, who except for Helen all lived together, was watching the Batman-inspired television show Gotham while drinking a mix of vodka, cola, and Dr. Pepper. One of the individuals, then 23-year-old Mary Ann Oliver Snow, mentioned that their ex-boyfriend had left behind a gun identical to the one used by the villain Penguin in the show. Brandishing a Glock handgun, Snow began to pass the weapon around, noting that it was unloaded. Afterward, instead of placing it back in the case as they normally would, the gun remained out in the open. Several hours passed, and the group continued to drink heavily. At some point, one of the housemates jokingly asked Snow to act like they were shooting them. They complied, with Helen apparently joining in, saying, "Oh, do me." Snow once again raised the gun, but then, to everyone's horror, it fired. Helen crumpled onto the floor with a bullet wound in their head. This sadly ended their life, and 2 days later, with their mother holding their hand and singing Beatles songs to them, Helen passed away. Now, this would all be chalked up to a horrifically tragic accident if it weren't for the circumstances surrounding the crime. Both Snow and Helen were heavily involved in Houston's cosplay community and met when Helen was in the 10th grade. They were starstruck by Snow, who was a bit of a local celebrity with her online following of 1.6 million. Known on the internet as @YandereFreak, Yandere Snow, or Snow the Salt Queen. Snow could be problematic. Drama seemed to follow Snow. and they were intensely protective of the characters they often chose to portray, particularly Junko from the Japanese anime Danganronpa. Their TikTok bio even read, "The IRL Junko Enoshima." Junko is a yandere, an archetype of a character in Japanese anime from which Snow drew their username. Yandere are usually feminine characters who display intense love and devotion, which usually unravels into intense, obsessive, and sometimes violent behavior. Although most cosplayers do not actually believe that they are the characters they portray, Snow appeared particularly fixated on the Junko character. Additionally, they were known to claim that their cosplay characters were alternative identities that lived inside their head. As a result, some wonder whether Snow's alter Junko had a say in what happened that fateful night. As Morgan Gross, Helen's ex, who also knew Snow, said to Rolling Stone, "Like, did Junko kill Helen? Should Junko in Snow's body be allowed to be free, like outside of prison or a mental facility?" The case was further complicated by Snow continuing with their online activity mere weeks after Helen was slain. After taking a brief hiatus for the remainder of January, they returned to TikTok in February, and many people still had no idea what had occurred, with some believing Helen had taken their own life. Snow continued to post as creepy anime characters, often posing with fake blood and dark-themed videos. It wasn't any different than the content they had posted before, but seen in the light of Helen's death, it seemed in poor taste at best. Charged with second-degree felony manslaughter, but free on a $20,000 bail, they continued as if it were business as usual, collaborating with other content creators and attending cosplay events, albeit with a visible ankle monitor in tow. Snow finally deactivated their accounts in the fall of 2021 after the case caught more media attention. Second-degree felony manslaughter carries a jail sentence of anywhere between 2 and 20 years in the state of Texas. At the time of recording, no trial date has been set. Helen, whose life was tragically cut short, is remembered fondly by those dearest to them. As close friend Roz Kish Levine told the Oberlin Review, "I want her to be remembered as a real person who is more than just a story or an event, as who she was, a wonderful friend, a bright person." On October 18, 2021, Ali Abulaban's wife and mother of his 5-year-old daughter, 28-year-old Anna, asked him to move out of their San Diego apartment on Island Avenue. The pair's marriage had been floundering since they moved to the city in February, but Abulaban was hopeful that her request was temporary. However, before leaving, he made a secret copy of the key to the dwelling. This was not the only indication of trouble in their relationship. Prior to Anna's demand, authorities had been called to their residence at the Spire San Diego 9 different times between July and October. The family had relocated from Virginia to be nearer to Anna's friends in Southern California, and it was convenient for Abulaban as well, since he was a rising social media star with Hollywood dreams.
Yo, you got a bathroom in here? Nah? Alright. Yo, what'd you say to me? Yo, suck my dick, stupid. Yo, y'all know the vibes?
Need something? Need something? Need something? Need something? Need something? Need something?
Known on TikTok as Gen Kid, Abulaban was popular for his impersonations of violent characters like Tony Montana from Scarface or the titular character from the John Wick movie franchise. He had 950,000 followers on the platform and was generally well received, but his family mentioned that the fame seemed to go to his head. He developed a nasty drug habit and once allegedly pulled out a large bag of cocaine while hanging out with his friends and cousins. Fearful that they would get in trouble, his cousin Louis Marinari told Fox 5 San Diego that he urged him to stow the drugs.
Pulls out like a full bag of cocaine, not like a little bag, a big bag. And we're like, what the hell?
Abulaban objected, saying, "I'm Gin Kid. I can do whatever I want. Nobody can touch me." Abulaban, on the other hand, blamed the trouble in their marriage on Anna's partying habits, saying that their idyllic life in Virginia was shattered by Anna's new lifestyle. He told a local news station, "My wife wanted me to move out here with her friends to a life where there's Taco Tuesday, Women Wednesday, Party Saturday, Bar Sunday." Yet Anna's longtime friend Cassie Conroy denies this, stating that Abulaban was just a bad guy. Abulaban's cousin Louis agrees, sharing with newscasters that Anna's newly busy social life made him feel insecure and jealous. Several days after he moved out of his family home on October 21st, Abulaban used his key to enter. He apparently vandalized the apartment a bit before installing an app that could function as a listening device on his daughter's tablet. Later that day, he became enraged when he heard a male voice echoing through his secret bug. He quickly drove over and entered the apartment to find his wife and a 29-year-old friend, Rayburn Cardenas Barron, supposedly kissing on the couch. It is unclear what happened next, but both Anna and Rayburn wound up with fatal gunshot wounds, and Abulaban subsequently confessed to both his mother and the police that he killed them both, though he now denies confessing anything. He does, however, insist that Anna was cheating on him with Rayburn, a fact that the prosecution adamantly denies. Abulaban called the police around 3 p.m. and was told to remain on the scene, which he did not. He was arrested later that afternoon driving on California State Route 15 with his young daughter and a gun in the car. He was subsequently arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, a crime that could mean life in prison or even the death penalty. Although executions have been paused indefinitely in the state of California since 2019. Initially pleading not guilty and held without bail, preliminary hearings for his case began in January 2022. He will face a trial by jury that was scheduled to start on September 27, 2022. It is unclear whether or not the trial has begun. Since he is currently in prison, he is obviously not creating any more content, and it appears that his original TikTok account has been deleted. However, his last YouTube upload occurred in early 2022, and there is a secondary account, @GenKid2, that seems to be reposting his old videos on TikTok. The person behind this account is unknown. Whether it was fame, drugs, or partying that started it, it seems that Abulaban's jealousy got the best of him, and he brought his violence from social media into real life. It isn't necessarily an inherently bad thing to desire fame. There is a problem, however, when that desire impacts the health and safety of those around you. And that's just what happened between Zachary Latham and the Durham family during the spring of 2020. Although the United States legal system places the age of adulthood at 18, Latham became an emancipated minor at 17, legally and financially separating from his parents. Soon after, he joined the National Guard and moved in with his grandparents at their home in Vineland, New Jersey. But Latham had already begun stirring up trouble in the sleepy suburban town before he lived there. As soon as he received his driver's license at age 16, Latham began causing trouble in the neighborhood, particularly with the Durhams. It started innocently enough. Latham was speeding and driving recklessly up and down the street, so the Durham family's patriarch, William Durham Sr., or Timmy for short, complained to Latham's grandfather. One stern conversation with his grandfather later, Latham was sent over to Timmy's home to apologize. That should have been the end of it, but Latham continued his antics, appearing eager to antagonize the Durhams. Eventually, on April 6, 2020, after 2 years and multiple smaller arguments with Timmy and other members of his family, Latham recorded Timmy's wife, Catherine, as she scolded him for speeding around the neighborhood. He repeatedly called her Karen and provoked her by asking,
"What are you gonna do, Karen?"
That's not my name, so
You okay, Karen? Go ahead, get my tag.
Joe,
Get my tag, Karen.
my name is not Karen, so get my name straight.
Get my tag, it's okay.
A45MFA. Sir, there's an officer.
All because my car is loud. 3 cop cars.
After posting the clip to TikTok, it went viral, with many commenters egging Latham on and encouraging him to vandalize her home and her vehicle. Seeing that this was a potential avenue to become TikTok famous, Latham started filming members of the Durham family each time he annoyed them, posting another clip heckling Catherine Durham and one with William Durham Jr., the couple's 21-year-old son. In this one, William can be heard urging Latham to get out of his car, but he declines, instead letting William know that he is armed with a knife.
A knife, dude, you better play. I'm calling the cops on you, that's good. Alright. Yeah.
This particular incident garnered the attention of police, but no charges wound up being filed. It seemed Latham was constantly trying to get a rise out of the Durhams, slowing his car and revving his engine as he passed their home, or blowing Catherine a kiss as he sped by. The Durhams were attempting to remedy the situation through legal means, repeatedly contacting the Vineland police. However, they were told that no complaints against Latham could be filed because the courts were closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Face, we would arrest you.
But you won't do anything even though you saw video proof, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
For your video, that is correct.
thank you.
Latham even posted a TikTok of a Vineland police officer telling him that they wouldn't be doing anything about the matter. About a month after the initial skirmish with Catherine, on May 4th, Latham swerved his car on the road, narrowly missing the Durham's 17-year-old son Gage, who was riding his bike at the time. Enraged, Timmy and other members of his family decided to settle matters themselves and went out to confront Latham. Timmy pulled his truck out into the road and attempted to block Latham, while Catherine began to record the events on her phone. Latham then struck Catherine, knocking the phone from her hands before heading home. The Durhams followed him there, and upon arrival were greeted by his wife, 18-year-old Sarah Latham, who was filming on her phone. She threatened the family, telling them to stay off the property, saying, "I promise you, you better back up, because you're not going to like what's coming out." Latham, meanwhile, had retreated indoors to retrieve 2 knives and a taser. The Durhams were unarmed. Re-emerging, Latham fired his taser at one of Timmy's sons, and Timmy lunged at Latham, getting slashed in the arm in the process. The pair continued to tussle, with Timmy following Latham toward his garage and Sarah urging her husband to drop the knife. Eventually, Latham stabbed Timmy just under his armpit, puncturing his lung and ultimately killing him. He claimed self-defense and was arrested on a first-degree manslaughter charge. Catherine and her sons were charged with trespassing and assault. The Durhams, understandably furious about Timmy's murder, are planning to sue the city, citing Latham's earlier juvenile record of simple assault, incendiary threats, and criminal mischief as evidence that police should have acted when the Durhams first complained. Furthermore, the Durham's attorney sought to have the charges against Catherine and her sons dropped, and the charges against Latham escalated to first-degree murder. Despite the efforts of the Durham's lawyer, Latham has been charged with manslaughter and assault. His trial began in March 2023, and by April, a jury found him not guilty on all charges.
County of Cumberland, aforesaid, and within the jurisdiction of this court, did recklessly cause the death of William T. Durham Sr. contrary to the provisions of NJSA 2C11-4B1 and against the peace of this state, the government and dignity of the state.
Not guilty.
How do you find on the count of the indignity of the same?
Not guilty.
Thank you. Sir, you may be seated. All right, as I indicated, now, juror number one.
Yes.
No longer full person, now juror number one. The verdict you just reported, was that your individual verdict?
Yes.
Juror number two, same question.
Yes.
Juror number three.
Yes.
Juror number four.
Yes.
Juror number six.
Yes.
Juror number 8.
Yes.
Juror number 9.
Yes.
Juror number 10.
Yes.
Juror number 11.
Yes.
Juror number 12.
Yes.
Juror number 13.
Yes.
And juror number 14.
Yes.
Okay.
It is important to note that the jury was kept in the dark about Latham's antics against the Durham family prior to the deadly interaction of May 4, 2020. A court ruling forbade the prosecution from mentioning it. When asked about the case, Cumberland County Prosecutor Jennifer Webb McCrae noted, "We are disappointed, but respect the will of the jury." However, Latham is also facing charges in the state of Florida. He was caught flaunting a pellet gun that closely resembled an AK-47 rifle and has been accused of assault. That case has not yet been resolved. It has been alleged, though never proven without a doubt, that Latham and his wife Sarah purposely ignited the confrontation to gain a larger TikTok following. Though we can't say for sure, it does seem like Latham's actions point in this direction. His antagonism towards the Durham family was markedly escalated after he went viral for the first time in April 2020. As for Timmy, a former corrections officer, he is deeply missed by his wife and 2 sons. The charges against Catherine Durham were eventually dismissed, and her eldest son, William Jr., was sent to a pretrial intervention program in lieu of facing his criminal charges in court. The legal fate of her younger son, Gage, is unknown, since he was a minor at the time of the incident. Dear viewers, the following case contains crimes against a child and will not be suitable for all audiences. As this is our last case, please feel free to close the video now if this content is in any way triggering for you. On the evening of August 9, 2020, 23-year-old Nicola Priest invited her boyfriend, 22-year-old Callum Redfern, over to the apartment she shared with her 3-year-old daughter, Kaylee Jade, in Solihull, Birmingham, United Kingdom. After putting Kaylee Jade to bed, the couple was eager for some alone time. But like toddlers often do, Kaylee Jade wasn't interested in sleeping, and she interrupted her mother and Redfern. What happened next is unknown, but Kaylee Jade was severely beaten and sadly died as a result. Her mother called emergency services after the young child had already passed away, and her life might have been saved if they were called sooner. Her injuries were vicious and numerous, with experts comparing the wounds to those seen in a child hit by a fast-moving car or falling 3 stories onto concrete. Unfortunately, this wasn't Kaylee Jade's first encounter with violence, and her mother was worse than negligent. In her short life, she had already sustained a broken leg, a fractured sternum, and broken ribs. Priest was also accused of leaving the toddler in dirty diapers for extended periods of time, smacking her on the head and calling her names. In text messages between Priest and Redfern, she tells him about hitting her daughter because she soiled her diaper, and he encouraged her, responding, "Good, give her one for me." In another horrifying instance, neighbors overheard a thud followed by Kaylee Jade's wails. Priest was heard saying, "I'll just say she fell off the bed." Characterized as selfie-obsessed by the media, Priest appeared disinterested in her daughter, unless she was filming content for social media. In CCTV footage mere hours before Kaylee Jade's tragic death, Priest is seen actively ignoring her daughter, while Kaylee Jade continually looks up at her mother's face. Conversely, in videos for social media, Priest seems eager to interact with her child, almost using her like a prop or a puppet. Additionally, 1 month after her daughter's death, Priest started a TikTok account posting strange tributes to her deceased child and lip-syncing the lyrics, "I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, I know I messed up bad. I should have done better," before beginning a viral dance challenge. In August 2021, both Priest and Redfern were charged with manslaughter and sentenced to 15 and 14 years in prison, respectively. Priest was additionally convicted of child cruelty due to her child's historical injuries. This charge carries a 3-year sentence that Priest will serve simultaneously with her manslaughter conviction. Kaylee Jade is remembered as a happy child despite her turbulent home life. Her grandmother, Debbie Windmill, said in a statement after the trial, "Everybody deserves the gift of life. Kaylee Jade deserved to show the world who she could have been and what greatness she could have brought to this world. Nanny will forever hold you in her heart." This was a tough one for us to get through, the last case especially, but we really want to hear your thoughts. Did you know about any of these cases before? Or do you know of any others we may have missed? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.